Alright, so on the bench today we have a classic Philco Cathedral. I picked this up at the Shelby Ham Fest up in Shelby, North Carolina. And I've been wanting to get a cathedral for a while, and saw this one at a fair price and thought I'd pick it up. So, as always, I like my radios working, so thought I'd share this with you guys and take you along for trying to get this thing back together and running. And I was walking around out in some of the booths, and a guy had a bunch of old radios sitting out on a table, and he had this sitting out there, and of course this stuck out to me more than all the other ones he had, which were basically just a little 5-tube or transistorized radios. And so I stopped and looked at it and saw the price on it and said, well, that's pretty reasonable, and I left the price on it. So, and that's actually a little bit more than what was on the back of it. I don't know if this is what he paid for it or not, but either way, compared to Nutso eBay prices, I thought that wasn't too bad for this, and hopefully the main bones of it check out. But it is missing some tubes, and looks like it has some fluid leakage or something out of the transformer, so hopefully that's not shot. If it is, then I do have a backup plan. I've got a junker radio that maybe a transformer might work on out of that one. So anyway, it's a pretty clean cabinet, all original finish. There are some scratches and stuff on it. This is from around 1932. This is a Philco Jr., so this would have been a lower end set. But back then, this is during a time where lower end didn't mean lower quality. All these radios back then were built like tanks, and probably why a lot of them are still around today. So anyway, I'll turn it around and let you look at the back. There's only one tube left in this thing. Put the light down there where you can see in there a little better. Looks like our one of our IF tubes is missing, along with the can tube shield, and our rectifier tube's missing, and our number 42 output tube is missing as well. So 80 rectifier and a 77 IF tube is missing. So we still have one of the the first IF tube, which is a 77 as well. So there's 4 tubes. There's an 80, 2 77s, and a 42 output tube, all of which I believe I have in stock. So hopefully can get this thing up and running. But I'm kind of worried about this thing because, I don't know if you notice right there at the bottom of the transformer, it looks like it had leaked out some fluid. I don't know if that got hot or if this cap shorted and took out the transformer or what. But I do have a radio that's similar to this. It's a couple of years newer. If need be, hopefully that transformer is good and I can replace it if that's what's wrong with it, or if it's bad. So anyway, this is a pretty simple radio, and I think we'll go ahead and pull it out of the cabinet and look up under the bottom of it and see what we got. We'll see what we got to work with. Alright, so before we do all that, I thought maybe we'd take a look in the Philco book. I've got Philco Radio by Ron Ramirez. This is a great book if you collect Philco radios or have any interest in even in old radios. he gives a lot of information out, and I'd imagine it's a lot of information that probably took a lot of time, but from him to write this book. And it's even got the tube layouts in the back. So this is a model 81, and this chapter here is 1932 to 33, and so we have our model 81. We got two bands. Band 1 is a standard old broadcast band from 540 to 1500, and nowadays that goes up to 17. And I believe this is the old police band, which is 1.5 to 2.8 megahertz, and it's 115 volts, 4 tubes, and 4 controls. It says the later production models have 3 controls, as the off, on, and volume switch was combined with the volume control. And mine does have that combination, so it's probably a later model. So it says that the tube layout is at appendix 2 615, and the model 81B is in a cabinet similar to the model 80B shown on page 40. So we're on page 41. So that would be this one here, only I could get that glare off the picture. Only ours has 3 controls, and this one has only 2. So this would have been an even lower model. It just didn't have but 1 band on it, just the broadcast band. Alright, and a glance at our tube lineup. We got our 80, our 277s, and a 42 output tube there. Alright, so to remove our chassis, we need to remove our 3 knobs from the front, and then we need to flip it over. And remove our 3 chassis screws up under the bottom. I'm surprised none of them are missing. Alright, and so with our 3 screws removed, it slides right out the back, and you have to kind of watch out for your cord here. You don't want it to break the dial scale. It's kind of short. It goes up to the speaker. It don't really give you a whole lot to work with here. Well, this is the top of our chassis here. Pretty simple. Big old IF cans and 2 big electrolytics. So let's flip it over and see what we're dealing with on the bottom here. Yeah, a bunch of old Bakelite blocks and some dog bones. Old crusty, dusty stuff up under here. Guess that's in a way kind of a good thing. Nobody's been on here monkeying with anything, it don't look like. And it looks like even our original electrolytics are still connected. Still connected at the base there. This one's still connected. So we know those are dead. I don't even want to check them. I may want to check them and make sure they're not completely shorted. But see, this is what I'm concerned about, is all the shiny stuff on the bottom end of that transformer there. That may or may not indicate anything, but be a good idea to know if that's shorted or not. I may ohm that thing out before I even plug it in and see if it's shorted. As you can see, our power cord here is in-op, so that'll have to be addressed. We'll have to put a new power cord on it, and I got some old power cords around here that are vintage power cords that are in pretty good shape, so I'll have to see what I've got to put on this, but I'm not going to be in a hurry to plug this thing in before I do a couple of checks and at least replace those filter caps, because I know they're dead and they're ancient and need to be replaced, I'm not even gonna try that. I'm gonna check these things and make sure they're not dead shorted, just out of curiosity, to see if that may have taken out the transformer, or whether we're dealing with a good transformer or what. So do a couple of ohms checks on this thing and see what's going on. Alright, I'm going to do a simple ohms check on this thing, if I can get the glare off the meter there. Alright, that's on that cap. What is that? 17K and going up. So doesn't look like it's dead shorted, but not too far away from it. Let's check this other one over here. That's 700K or 500 and dropping. So yeah, those. Alright, so those are definitely going to need to be replaced. These two capacitors, filter caps. There wasn't really any doubt it needed to be replaced anyway, but they just wanted to see if they were dead shorted. They're not dead shorted. They're not exactly good either, so things are looking okay so far, but I think the best thing we could do right now is to ohm out the primary and secondary windings of this power transformer and see what we get. Alright, we have our power cord coming in here. One side goes to the power switch. The side that comes out goes straight into the transformer. The other side of the power line goes straight to this filter block capacitor, bakelite block filter cap over here, or across the line cap here, and then there's a wire that comes off here, goes straight to the transformer. So we're going to measure across both of the primary windings of the transformer and see what we get here. The other side hooks to this switch here, and we got about 13 to 14 ohms, so that looks good on that side. Alright, so measuring across our filament winding on our transformer, we pretty much have, almost a dead short, which is probably about right. And then we have over here on our main windings here, I've got about 401 ohms, so that looks about right. Not shorted or anything, so this transformer might be good. It looks like it would probably be good. I'm not exactly sure what they say for the filament windings. 0.15 ohms, so I got about 0.7, so that's not far off. Yeah, so I'm thinking I think this transformer is going to be good. If it was to short out, I would think it would short out on either the primary or the secondary windings, and not necessarily the filament windings on it. So usually the filament windings aren't affected most of the time. Can't say for sure. Usually if they are affected, they're usually open, or a short happens somewhere in the filament line, but I don't see that being the case here. So I say we disconnect them old caps there and put in some caps, and put in a power cord. And I need to go find the tubes for this thing and see what happens, but I'll get back. Alright, so far I have gotten both of the capacitors replaced. Splice in a new cloth cord. One I had in a junk box. I think it might have come off an old iron or something. Let's see. And yeah, so that's what I've gotten done, and I got all of our tubes put in there. I had to go and borrow an 80 rectifier tube out of another radio that I had around here. I'm out of those, but I did have the 77 and the 42 output tube, so I got that put in there. And so now, with our windings of our transformer checked and new capacitors installed, I think we'll be good to slowly bring this thing up on a variac. So I'm going to plug that in there, and I think we'll start it out pretty low. Go ahead and turn it on, and we'll bring it up slowly and kind of monitor it and see what's going on. Alright, we're up to about 50 volts or so. Don't see anything funny going on. Don't see anything going on really. A little bit more to it. Up to about 65 volts. Our dial light bulb is working. And I see a little glow on our tubes there. A bit of a glow on that tube there. So we know our dial light filament's working okay. Bring it up a little bit more. Up to about 75 or so. Starting to hear a little static from the speaker. Not getting any reception though. Up a little bit more, about 90 volts. So I'm hearing like our capacitor on our tuner is shorting out a little bit. Hear a little hum. But not getting any reception. We're up to just about full power there. And I'm not getting anything. So I guess we need to try to troubleshoot and see what's going on this thing. I would say maybe replace some capacitors and see if it comes back to life, but I think I'm gonna do a little some voltage checks and see where that goes. See what we get from that. Alright, so just a little update here. I've checked the voltages on a lot of these tubes and they seem about normal. There's no signal getting through. I did turn on the signal generator and put the lead real close to This, well, I called these IF cans, but in this design it's an oscillator coil is what they list them as. This really doesn't have an IF can per design. It is a superhet, but it's not your average superhet. It's a real early superhet. So anyway, I believe what we have is an antenna, or excuse me, an oscillator coil, or, you know, in a newer, modern, more modern radio, an open IF coil. What you have here is an antenna coil here. Your signal comes in from your antenna wire here, and actually goes through your volume control. That's how you control the volume on this one. You don't turn the gain of the preamplifier, or, you know, your driver audio tube, aka first audio tube, up and down with this one. You adjust the actual signal coming in by resistance, and then it goes out into your antenna coil, through your antenna coil, and into the input of this detector oscillator tube, and goes out of that through your, you know, your first oscillator coil or IF can, which, you know, anyway, then out of that, you know, into the other tube, and then back out. So I think what we have is I'm able to get a tone signal in this can at the very top of it, but I'm not able to get a signal into this can, or any you know, I'm just not able to get a signal past this can here. I'm not getting any signal with a signal tracer. I need to watch that. I'm not getting a signal with a signal tracer anywhere past, you know, anywhere really. All I can get is just dead air, so there's really just nothing happening up here. So I believe we have an open antenna coil. If that's the case, you know, that could be a big problem, because, you know, these parts are almost impossible to get a hold of. So you know, I have a feeling the wire in this is going to be extremely thin, so I don't know if I can fix that or not. But before I jump to any conclusions, I just need to check the coil and see what's going on. But I just thought I'd turn you back on and tell you what's going on. Alright, so I have discovered that after probing around for a while, that we have a open oscillator coil, which is right in here. That's why we're not getting any action out of that. I call those IF cans. This is actually an IF can. This is an oscillator coil, and that's an antenna coil. So what's going on is that in our schematic here, we have this 3.9 ohm feedback loop for the oscillator coil here. We have number 10 here and number 4 here, which are paralleled at that mica cap there and that dog bone resistor there, which is right here. This is the tube side, this is the coil side. So tube side and coil side, so that would be the coil. This would be the coil end of it here. And probing on our ohm meter to right here, and we have one lead to ground. We have an open. We have an open. So tube's not going to amplify without a feedback circuit, so we're not going to get much action out of this tube, which we're not getting anything on the plate. We're getting B+ on the plate, but we're not getting any signal on the plate, so there's no amplification going on. So with that being open, that's not going to work. So I looked at my spare radio, and the coil that they have in there is different than this one. So the only thing I can think of to do is to try to get this thing out of here and see if I can repair it. I don't know, unless I'm lucky. Maybe down here at the end it's broke loose, and maybe I can just resolder it if I'm lucky. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking at rewinding that that oscillator coil, and I don't know if I want to get into that or not. So let me see what's going on with this and see what all it's going to take to do this. I did ohm everything else out. It seems to check out okay, but that other 3.9 little small coil there is open. Alright, so I have removed the oscillator coil here and have located our open. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a wire. Comes out right there. I don't know how well this magnifies, or it really seemed like it magnifies any on the camera. But let's try and see if we can point this out here. Right here is our wire. Yeah, I'm looking through the camera lens. This doesn't look like this magnifies for the camera at all. So best I can do is put some light on it here. Get this thing situated. Yeah, I see there's a bunch of glare. Alright, so right here, coming out of this little hole right here, which has got glue poured on it right there, a piece of wire comes out right there, and somewhere over in here is our other wire that broke off of. So that's where our open's at. Alright, so I've located our broken wire. Hope that's showing up on camera. I got both of them kind of angled up. That's our broken wire there. Now, can I put that back together? I don't know. It's some really thin wire. But I'm going to try, so that's all I can do. If I had my way about it, I'd try and pull that down and resolder it, but you can't. I don't want to disturb that winding. All this old glue is fairly brittle, so it's fairly easy to get that up. But once I located it, but I've got to be super careful with this fragile wire and all the glue left behind too. Alright, I don't know if you can see that, but I got our little wire soldered there, and coming up over here I decided to run a new line because that other one's going to be impossible to solder to. So right there at that solder point to here, I have an ohms reading, so that winding is restored. Now I've got what I'm going to do is, where that solder joint's at, I'm going to glue all that so it don't even move, and it'll be sealed off, because if that thing moves, it'll break that wire, and I'm you know, we want to try to avoid that. We just want to make a connection and seal it. Alright, so there's our repair under glue. When that dries, it should be hopefully good to go. This is our ground lug, obviously, and so with this side of the the lead from the ohm meter hooked up, I am getting an ohms reading now of 5 ohms. So this is back working again. So hopefully when that dries, we should be good to go. Let's just solder that back up, and I'll recheck all these to make sure all these are still good. Our inner coil, it checked okay, and I'll try and reinsert this back in, and so this is good. As long as that's repaired, this should be good to go now, hopefully. Alright, so the other I must admit, the other day I must have done made a brain dead mistake, and when I replaced these coupling caps, these bypass and coupling caps that are in this Bakelite block here, and for some reason I wired it up to where each of these were shunted to ground, which was not the way it was supposed to be. This is a coupling cap that goes from here to here and then in here, not from here to ground. So I was shunting all my audio to ground when I put my coil back in, my oscillator coil back in. I still wasn't getting anything, and I was trying to figure out why. So I took the signal tracer, and I was getting a signal all the way up to here and then nothing in here. So, and then it dawned on me, wait a minute, this is these are both shunted to ground, so I'm shunting all that audio to ground. So I took it back apart and fixed it, and so now we hopefully can actually hear something.
Price 866-96.
Well, I must have done something right. This thing
67-8335.
It's got a lot of squealing and heterodyning into it, but it's kind of a fine balance with these things to get them tuned right.
By New York City Emergency Management and the Ad Council.
Great things happen when people use the cloud to work. Cloud. Since our empowered to invent life-saving cures, smarter investment models, and cleaner energy. Without protected technology, these innovations might never happen.
Over people in cars or drunk drivers like 5 or 6 chances before they finally put them in jail. They like to get them a
To help you do the job yourself and do it right.
Alright, well, it's working, so I think I need to check out the tune-in procedure and the alignment procedure and kind of figure out what all's involved with that. There's still a little bit of hum in the audio, but I still have some caps and stuff I need to change on this thing, and probably need to go through it and see what all is. I think I checked, a lot of the resistors seem to be, you know, decent for their age, and so I'd really rather not replace any more than I have to. Try to keep it mostly all original if I can, but anyway, I don't want to do too long of band scans. I had somebody yell at me for playing too long of band scans. So anyway, they got booted off the channel. So anyway, yeah, I'll be back, and we'll see what we can do to align this thing. Alright, I got the signal generator hooked up, and this thing must be way off because it's at 460 now. But if I go down to about 480, I can hear it. barely, but I can hear it. Set it back to 460. And we got the grid cap of the detector oscillator tube removed as indicated in the tuning instructions, and we're supposed to tune number 1 for maximum smoke and fire. There's that one, and number 2. So number 2 would be the next one over. That sounds good. Let's go to step 2. Alright, got the antenna, the generator hooked into the antenna. Set to 1400, tuned to max. Close enough. Alright. Move the dial position to 600. No changes to the generator. Tune this one for max. Back over to the antenna coil. That did change a little bit. Alright, now up to the old police band on 2.4 megahertz. I'm going to tune this one, number 6. It's about the same, not a whole lot of difference. And number 7, got to go down to 1.7 megahertz. Alright, down to 1.7. And tune that for max. Alright, so I did the alignment and turned it on, hooked up the antenna and put everything back to normal, and just got nothing basically on the broadcast band. It was dead. So I don't know, something's out of whack on this thing, and I'm gonna change some of these filtering caps out and see if that helps anything. Rebuild the rest of these bakelite block capacitors, go through and check some circuitry and play around with that alignment and see if I can get it to play any better. Alright, so back on this Philco Model 81. This thing has really been a pain to try to get tuned, and I've gone through the factory tuning procedure on the schematic, the tuning instructions on it, and haven't really had much luck. I've got it enough to where it'll pick up the local stations, but anytime you go up or down the dial, if you hit a signal, it just squeals, and I was having a time with it even squealing on the local stations. If you adjust the volume, it squeals. You got to remember, on this radio, this is not physically an audio gain adjustment for the volume. It is basically a resistor in line with the antenna circuit, and it just decreases the amount of signal rather than the volume. So yeah, that's just not you know, it's just it's going to affect the squealing, and you get a lot of heterodyning noises and stuff like that, which I'll demonstrate here in a minute. But I've got it to where it'll pick up the local stations. I can at least use it and play it. It's not one that I'd want to use to, you know, be a DX or anything like that. It, you know, when it picks up, it does okay, but you know, these very early super heterodynes are a real pain to get set right. There's like 4 adjustments on the back. Probably showed you earlier in the video. This is quite a bit later, a couple of months later, as a matter of fact, from the last clip you've seen. But there's these 4 adjustments here, and then there's a few more under the radio. And I tell you, if you get them just a little bit off, you're gonna be here for a very long time trying to get them back set to one another to where it'll pick up anything. And this thing is kind of temperamental. It'll pick up sometimes, and sometimes it won't. And you know, I mean, I've gone through this thing, and you know, everything component wise, it seems okay. So I don't know if it has anything to do with me putting that coil back together and it just not being just right or what. But anyway, I'm sure there's somebody out there that can give me advice, because I'm, you know, I tinker around with this stuff. I'm by no means a professional, and there's, you know, probably some guys out there that'll know a lot more about these older sets than I do. So anyway, I've done the best I can do with it. It's in my collection, so you know, it doesn't have to go to a customer, and I don't have to worry about it. You know, somebody being somebody else's problem, if you will. So anyway, you know, this video is just basically to share with you my getting this old guy working. So anyway, I'll demonstrate it playing.
Being lynched. Anyway, we'll get to all that as the program continues to unfold, but now back to
got a bit of a hum in the signal too.
So your point is that you think
something must not be filtering quite right.
Then you were for Hillary, that you finally come around at some point to right.
Yes, I wish he would just stand by and not let the media keep running.
See, there's some squealing there when you turn the volume all the way down.
The same with his crowd size.
You're going to get that squealing. And that decreases the volume, but it doesn't turn it all the way down. And it's on the verge. It's on the verge of a squeal on that signal when you turn it all the way down. And I don't get anything else. It just, you can drop down here and you just don't get anything. You don't get anything. You go to the shortwave, or what used to be the police band, which is basically 160 meters in that area, and you don't get anything. Now, I have played around with those adjustments back there and been able to get things on this band, but then you don't get anything on the other band, the broadcast band. So you kind of have to just split hairs with it. I mean, it's very touchy circuit, very, very touchy circuit. But I've had reservations on whether even to post this video or not, because I haven't really been very successful at getting this thing fully working. But I figure if I put this on here, it'll be a little bit of entertainment for you guys, and maybe maybe somebody can help me out with this issue on what to set, or exactly the right way to do it. I followed like I said, the factory instructions on how to do this, but I'm not really having a whole lot of luck, and maybe something in this video will help somebody else. So especially with getting that IF cam back working. So anyway,
they're kind of being manipulative, or just not using
but I do have it playing on the locals,
because they're so good at using emotional
so at
arguments,
least
they
it
don't
is
see all the facts.
at least it is
Take
somewhat
something and just,
usable,
like,
and
pull that one line.
Exactly. Now look, don't misunderstand me here.
all right, at least it is somewhat usable, and there's that off switch. I've got to figure out what's going on with the power switch. You click it off and it stays on anyway, so the switch is broken, and you're not going to get a replacement for that thing anyway. So I'll have to go in there and see if I can fiddle around with it and get it working, but it just won't disconnect the power. So anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, and I wish I could have maybe done a little bit better video, but this particular design of Heterodyne, Super Heterodyne, I am not very familiar with. I'm more familiar with a little bit newer stuff. This is the early 30s. By the mid to late 30s, the Super Heterodynes were a lot more straightforward than this design. It's kind of a funky design, but it's a beautiful radio. I love the cathedral design, and I've always been a fan of the cathedrals that Philco made in the 30s. So anyway, another one working again. At least it's better than it was. It wasn't playing at all before. So thanks for watching.